Hello, welcome to a new Chashi lesson, and today I'm going to devote this lesson to tea testing because now it's springtime, and I think it's a good way to a good time to review how we are going to test tea when we go to the mountains or when we go to tea merchants. So I know that I have lots of friendly competitors watching my blog, and maybe also people who are wondering if they want to become professionals. So let's review a bit different methods of tea testing. So in the mountains, actually the easiest way is to brew directly in a bowl. It can be the bowl from the tea testing set, or simply a rice bowl. This is something also that you find very often. Now the method is very simple. You preheat it, you put a set number of grams inside, and you fill it almost to the top. And then it's a testing that is more like cinematographic, because you will see the tea evolve, and you can try it at different times while it's brewing. So you really try to see how the tea changes in the bowl when it's 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes brewing. The other way is a bit more analytical and scientific way, is to use this brewing set. Here again, this is what they use in the Dongding competition. So first they measure 3 grams. This best is preheated. It's like 150 milliliter, and it's basically brewing these leaves inside with boiling water, and after 6 minutes pouring them out here and then looking at the open leaves. So this is more like a photography. Here we have cinema, we see how the brew is evolving. Here we have one photography after 6 minutes. What does the brew contain? What is this tea made of? And of course it's always easier to test when you have several teas at the same time, because if you have then you can compare different teas, and it's very quickly obvious which one is better, which one is more bitter, which one is sweeter, which one has higher notes, etc. etc. So if you have many sets together, if you compare many teas at the same time, it's of course easier. Just if you do too many, maybe it's, at the end it's also starting to be a bit confusing. But basically these are the two methods: first in a bowl or in a brewing set. Now if you don't have these brewing cups from the tea testing competition set, you can also simply use rice bowls. And then if you have many rice bowls, always the same, it's easier then for you to test different teas, and you want to test teas and to compare teas that are similar in nature. So maybe different Jinshuan or different high mountain oolongs, to see how they compare, because they are basically a bit similar already. So let's do at least one method. Let's I'll simply show you how it's done. So my water is almost hot already, but I'm still going to, so it's enough to preheat, but I'm still going to get it to a boil. So I'm a little bit preheating here. So I'm not going to brew with this competition set. It's because it looks a bit like using a Gaiwan, just the shape is a bit different. It has a hole here, and then it's designed so that it will stand like this when you empty it, so that you can empty many in a row very quickly. but apart that, it's pretty much like a Gaiwan, but maybe not as beautiful. However, the major difference with when you are brewing usually is you should measure exactly how many grams you use, so and then always use the same as a standard. Now I'm used to use 3 grams as a standard because this is what the Dongding Oolong competition in Lugu is using as a standard, and 3 grams, 6 minutes brewing. But as I said, I don't want to do this, just my emphasis. So this is one method. Here I'll show you quickly the method that is actually used more in the by farmers, because it's actually even easier for them. You don't have to measure the time. You simply let it. You put it in the. You put the leaves and pour water, and it's hot, and then you wait. You can see it's been turning, and you don't even. You can almost forget about it and start to check on it when it's when the leaves have opened up. So this is a method that is used for green tea, for Baozhong, and even for high mountain oolong. Of course, the higher the altitude and the more tighter rolled the oolong, the less suitable it is this kind of method. Then it's if it's too tight, and if the water is too cold in the high mountains, I prefer to use this actually. But here we are at almost at sea level in Taipei, and it's a warm day, so I don't need to don't really need to use this. But I can now. So what you do is you observe how the leaves are unfolding. You want to give it time, since it's a rolled oolong. In the beginning, as there are not so many aromas that are coming out, it's not so interesting, important to try right away. What you can do is, if you want to let them swirl a little bit more to open the leaves. Okay, so basically it's quite simple. Now, and with this it's preheating and then simply waiting 6 minutes. 6 minutes is a bit long. If I'm there waiting for 6 minutes, you'll find it very, very boring. That's why I'm not going to do this. Or you can put an alarm. That's what I use most of the time. But another way to enjoy is to use a Gaiwan. I'm also going to change to this more elegant plate. Dispose my cups. So okay, the leaves are starting to open up a bit. Now, in a real brew, you're not supposed to move the leaves around while they are brewing. This opening up should be very natural. Here, the fact that I'm pushing them a bit around, it's a bit like a stress test. So it's suitable only if you are testing the leaf. Good sweetness, light aromas. So this spoon, as you could see already, is not just used to scoop tea to drink, but it's actually your very first tool to smell the scents. So you make sure there's no drop of tea. and then you smell it. And since it cools down quickly, there are different aromas that appear depending if it's warm or if it's cool. And so you don't smell the inside, actually you smell the outside of the spoon, the back of the spoon, because it will have a bigger surface for the aromas. Very light notes. So the tea that I'm brewing is this year's Jinshuan Oolong from it was harvested on April the 2nd in Jushan. Now in these recent years I would always go to Alishan to find my Jinshuan, and this year I also made a trip to Alishan mid-April to try to find Jinshuan, but I was very disappointed with all the Jinshuan that I tried and I tasted there. The reason was that the weather this year is particularly cold in this early spring, so the Jinshuan in Alishan, they did not have much flavor. The aromas were very muted, very kind of green, but without the flowery scents that I'm used to and that I'm expecting. And this was repeated at different farmers. I tried several, and they all also agreed that this year's cold temperatures have reduced the growth of the leaves, so the leaves were all a bit too small, and also during the oxidation process with these low temperatures in the mountain made it really very hard to develop these stronger aromas, and so I decided not to get any from Alishan, and turned to an old friend from Jushan, and he so sent me a couple of samples, and this one from April 2nd I found actually was better than Alishan. So even though it's a bit lower, it's not it's below 1000, so it's not in my high mountain category like Alishan Jinshuan usually are. So it's from Yiguangshan in near Jushan, in around 600-700 meters of elevation, and thanks to this a bit lower elevation, it had a bit stronger higher temperatures, and the aromas I felt were better. The character is also a bit different. It's a bit less how you say powerful. Like high mountains, they have this kind of strong energy, so it's a bit lacking, but it's more sweet, more round, and easy to stay sweet for a long time. So now it's really complete. The leaves have opened very well. So you do this to look at the leaves, and now would also be the time to try to look at the color, smell again how it's evolving, and try a bit more. And yes, very sweet, lacking bitterness, astringency. It's very easy to drink, even brewed this way, which is the traditional testing way. Now some in the West have called it the grandpa way, because it's simply throwing some leaves, adding hot water on it. Very easy, but it's fresh, beginning of spring, and very round, no astringency, very easy to brew and to drink oolong at a very affordable price. Okay. Publicity, 4.5 US dollar for 25 grams only, or 22.5 US dollar for 150 grams, and it's really the oolong for beginners. Now, Jinchuan, some people say, oh, it sounds like a flower name, but actually this tea was produced and created in the early 80s by Professor Wu Zhendo, who was the head of the Taiwan Research and Extension Station, who is researching tea in Taiwan, public institution, and he named this new cultivar from the 80s after his grandmother, and so she was named Jinchuan. That's how this name became the name of an oolong, and his main purpose for this research, which took many years, was to create a new cultivar that is easy to grow for farmers, that has large leaves so that it will produce high yields, and therefore low price, and that is fragrant, because people in the 80s they started to like more and more fragrant teas, and not so much heavy in the aftertaste, so not too much bitterness or astringency, and this is indeed mission accomplished. It's very sweet, easy to drink, refreshing, high mountain oolong.